You are listening to PT on Ice, the Older Adult, a collaboration between the Senior Rehab Project and the Institute of Clinical Excellence. This is a rebroadcast of an original episode that can be found at ptonice.com. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Senior Rehab Podcast. And yes, that is a different intro from what you're used to hearing. I want to tell you all about a new course that's going to be coming out in collaboration with the Institute of Clinical Excellence. I'm very, very excited about this opportunity for many reasons. One of them is that I'm working with Christina Prevett, formerly known as Christina Novak. She is the Canadian physio that's married to Nick, who owns Stave Off. They both opened up Stave Off, a year or two ago. But she's been on the podcast, I think, like 3 or 4 times by now. You all should be well aware of her. I feel like I've mentioned her every other interview. But man, she just has a wealth of information. She's pursuing her PhD currently. And just very, very intelligent, but then also has a lot of experience to back it up, working in CrossFit gyms, but then also running her own clinic / fitness facility. So we are basically creating a course that is going to address a lot of the issues that we see in geriatrics, a lot of the things that we talk about on this podcast. You know, we both have had some very valuable experiences in our careers, but then also have been able to interact with all kinds of thought leaders in this field, and just feel like we should package this up and present it to people that would want to learn more about how to work with older adults in a very effective way, in a very thoughtful way, in a very evidence-informed way as well. So that's what we're doing with the Institute of Clinical Excellence. I never thought I'd be teaching a course, and I think I've said that a few times on the podcast, but let me give you some background for you all just to let you know how this happened. So I don't know if you recall this, but we did a survey back in April of 2017. Many of you all participated, so a big thank you. But a lot of the feedback that we got was a course. Like, where is an awesome course that's interactive, that preferably is an online format, to where we can learn how, which exercises should we be doing with our patients? How do we properly prescribe and dose a squat or a farmer carry or, potentially a deadlift if it's not, contraindicated. But there wasn't really anything out. And so y'all were wanting that. And that was very clear with many of your all's feedback. And what I did, I basically took that to Jeff. Knowing that, the Institute of Clinical Excellence, they have a really good reputation with the courses that they provide, whether online or in person. And I said, hey, this is what the people that listen to my podcast, here's what they want. Just want to let you know. Never said anything about me providing it. And he goes, well, why don't you do it? I said, excuse me? I don't want to do a course. And he's like, no, you should do a course. I mean, they want to hear this stuff. And he's like, you're qualified to teach it. And, you have some really good experience and some good things to say. And I was like, okay, let me think about it. And then he mentioned that, you don't have to do this alone. You can do this with someone else, much like Ryan Smith teaches a course with Mitch Babcock. It's the clinical management of the fitness athlete, and they're absolutely crushing it right now. And the first person that came to mind in collaborating with a course like this was Christina. I mean, we've interacted a ton. I really admire what she's doing. And she lifts some super heavy weight. That helps too. I really look up to her in many ways. So I approached her and she said, yeah, let's do it. And was really encouraging to me to, just buck up and just give it my all and just see what happens. So that's what we're doing. We're going to do this course, and I'm super excited about it because we've broken it in an 8-week format. It's all online. And so what we do is every week we have packaged content around a certain topic. So like, let's say week 1. So we have the clinical portion, which is going to be about screening. What screen should we be using with older adults when they walk into our clinic or we go into their home? And how do we actually interpret that data? And what does that data mean? And then we're going to have another facet to where it's going to be more of concepts. And so that week one will be kind of myths of aging. What is actually normal in the older adult, and really address a lot of the biases that we come to the table with in therapy, but just some of the myths that are all just so prevalent in our culture, but then also our profession. And so each week we're going to have that kind of clinical, practical application portion. Then we'll have more of the theoretical concepts, dig into some of the research. And we're going to do that every week. And you consume that content. And then we're going to do an online webinar meetup. So we'll all kind of get together, probably open up a beer, have a glass of wine, or a cup of tea, whatever you like, and we'll just sit and chat about what we learned over the week, what was challenging, and just have a really, really helpful discussion. So we can actually change how we're practicing. It's going to be an 8-week format. So it's kind of a mix of, you can go at your own pace, but then you also have some accountability. You're going to be in a private Facebook group with other people. That really promotes that sense of, we're in this together, which is really helpful, especially doing online continuing education. So this qualifies for 16 CEUs. I would check all the specifics on that. But all this information's on ptonice.com. So that's kind of the course. It's starting in January of 2018. But along with teaching this course, Christina and I are also, so we're on faculty now with the Institute of Clinical Excellence. So we are participating in their daily Facebook Live /podcast called PT on Ice. So every Wednesday we get on the mic and just talk about pertinent topics, research, things that we've been thinking about over the past week. And it's really fun because it's very interactive. People are logging on every morning at 8:30. And so it's pretty cool to be able to record audio and actually interact with the people that are listening. So what I'm going to be doing is rebroadcasting those recordings on this feed. So it's on the PT on Ice feed, which is owned by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. But Jeff and Alan said that I could, rebroadcast these in efforts to spread the word about this course, but then also, the stuff that we talk about. So that's all I got. We're about 7 minutes in. I apologize if I was rambling, but this is really exciting for me. And you all that have been listening for 2 years now, I hope that you can kind of see the change and the metamorphosis in this show and the community over the past 2 years. And it's been really encouraging. I just see this as another step in us as a community, just kind of, pushing the needle forward, talking about older adults, making people think differently about how we work with them. And it's exciting. So I hope you're sharing that excitement. I hope you consider, doing the course with us. So ptonice.com is where you can find it. And now let's finally get into the audio.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Christina Novak. Actually, I guess my name is Christina Prevett. I just got married this weekend, and my name is going to be switching, so it's going to be confusing for a little while. And I am actually one of the lead faculty that is coming on board with ICE for the proper management of older adults. So this is my first time on the ICE podcast, so I'm super, super excited to be here. And so I thought I would start with a little bit of an introduction of who I am. And then my podcast episode for today is 70 is the new 50. So I graduated from PT school in 2013, and I started working in kind of a CrossFit gym setting. And I worked with some older adults using a lot of classic strength and conditioning principles. And I saw just how well they did, just with general exercise strengthening. And once they finished with PT, I would discharge them into a gym-based program. And if they didn't continue with it, I would just see them again 6 to 8 weeks later once, deconditioning and, starting that reversal of some of the strength gains that they had started to come into play. And so I went back in 2015 to start my PhD on the use of strength training with older adults. So basically what my doctoral work looks at is how, as PTs, we can start implementing preventative strategies for older adults to increase their physical capacity and therefore change their functional trajectory over time by identifying people who are at risk but haven't yet established clinical geriatric syndromes. And so I'm looking at kind of preclinical disability and risk factors for frailty, things like that. In 2016, I started a clinic that basically tried to implement some of the things that I was learning in my PhD into practice, and that's how Stave Off came to be. So because of kind of all of that work, I got approached by Dustin Jones and Jeff Moore to come on board with some of the work with older adults, and I'm super, super excited to be here. Okay, so today I thought we would talk a little bit about 70 is the new 50. And over the last, I would say, couple of decades, we have started to see a shift in what we typically see as an older adult. And what do I mean by that? In my practice, I work in private practice, so I'm not in a hospital setting. But it's not uncommon for me now to see people in their 50s, 60s, 70s who are continuing to participate in sport, are pretty diligent about some of their exercise programs. And I have quite a few people on my caseload right now who are in their 60s and want to continue participating in things like marathons and Ironmans and triathlons and pickleball and tennis and squash. And I don't think that that's something that we would have classically seen a little bit ago in like years past. And so I think especially with this trend where we are starting to be very acutely aware of the importance of staying active and proper nutrition and sleep and stress management, all of these modifiable lifestyle factors, that we're seeing a shift in the ideologies and essentially the physical presentation of some of our older adults. And I think that was really greatly represented when the APTA in 2014, in one of their Choose Wisely campaigns, was talking about this chronic underdosing of older adults. And I kind of think that that's on me as a physical therapist, because sometimes that reflects our biases of what we think that somebody who is 60, 65, 70, 75 is capable of, and not necessarily meeting our patients where they are. And so, if we're in a hospital setting, we tend to see people who are obviously suffering from different ailments and different conditions. And over the last 5 to 10 years in the literature, we're starting to see that we're following people over time in these prospective cohort studies. And we're seeing that there is a difference between a normal aging trajectory and an aging trajectory for somebody who is coming forward with some of these clinical geriatric syndromes. And there's a difference between these people. And I think sometimes as therapists, because we see and we're so educated on some of these clinical geriatric syndromes, that we almost take this as our normal. And so I get to see a lot of people in practice who are, along that normal aging trajectory, which means that at 70, they can still run. I have a client who's 74 who still likes to run. And I don't think it's on me to tell him that he can't, unless there is something orthopedically or something in his medical history that is telling him that he can't. And so I am kind of on the podcast today to challenge my own bias, because I think about it all the time, and say, is it what I think that a 70-year-old person can do? Or is it asking the client where they were at from a baseline perspective? And so I guess what I'm talking about when it comes to some of my assessments, outside of the orthopedic tests and some of the manual concepts that we talk about a lot in other ICE courses, is in your assessments, do you actually get a functional baseline? Do we talk to some of our clients who are in their 60s and 70s and get a good idea of what they're doing in their day-to-day life? And that can be either, through a conversation and self-report. There are some amazing outcome measures such as the preclinical disability mobility scale that is asking about different activities of daily living and different sports activities and asking our clients, do they have any issues or impairments in doing any of these functional tasks outside of, someone's coming in because they have a sore knee or hip, for example. Or as people are coming into the clinic, are we doing functional testing with them that's appropriate for their level? And there's also things like the seniors fitness test, which actually can place people into, somebody who is presenting with a clinical geriatric syndrome, typically aging, community dwelling older adult, and then actually the master's athlete category. And it kind of has norms and values for these different individuals based on where we would place them from our clinical perspective. And then finally, the last endnote that I wanted to kind of talk about with this 70 is the new 50 is some of the language that we use as physical therapists as we're talking with some of our older clients. When we are speaking with people who are older, we're trying to be very respectful. But over the last couple of years, what the literature is showing is that, especially with the baby boomers and things like that, they don't want to be called old. I find it almost like unnatural to say senior because I see so much functional ability in people as they get older. And so I'm very cognizant of the words that I use and my choice of vocabulary as I'm working with older adults across the continuum. And I think we're going to see that continue to change. And I think that was one of the things that we really thought about when we said the proper management of the older adult, because just like Dustin says all the time, old is not weak. And that doesn't mean that, there's something wrong. We just have to be respectful of where they are along the aging process. And so those are kind of the two clinical things that I thought I would take at the end. One is our choice of vocabulary. And the second one is, are we doing some sort of self-report baseline and functional measures so that we know where we're trying to get our client back to? All right, that is it for today. If you guys have any questions or comments for me, please feel free to message through any of the ICE platforms. You'll be seeing me alternating back and forth with Dustin on Wednesdays because we're going to be talking everything geriatrics and older adults. And if you guys have any requests about what you want us to be talking about, these are going to be kind of teasers to the course that's coming up in January with Dustin and I leading the way. And we'll talk again soon. Bye, guys.
Hit me. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, go to ptonice.com, click on the courses tab, and check out Modern Management of the Older Adult. This is a course that myself and Christina Prevett are going to be teaching. It's 8 weeks, an online format, interactive, and solely focused on helping students change how they practice and how they work with older adults. For more information, just go to ptonice.com. Thanks.